Hey, it's Andrew here, and in today's video, we're going to talk about what happens if you are running an ad campaign and leads are coming in, but they're not converting. And it's a really important topic to discuss because oftentimes I find with business owners, especially if they come from a world where they've dealt with referrals, and now they're embarking on transitioning from being, self-employed, relying on referrals or other people, to being more of a business owner, which is relying on systems and team. They started to put in some infrastructure such as an engagement process, follow-up emails, texts, maybe even an appointment setter to call those leads, a sales process, because sales process is always an interesting one for me because a lot of business owners will tell me that, don't worry about that, I'm really good at sales. But they're talking about referrals. And referrals are easy because there's trust. But when you're dealing with the open market, the positive is sky's the limit. But you need to have a good sales process in place that's very different to how you may speak with referrals, because now you have no trust. You need to overcome that. So in today's video, I want to talk about if leads are not converting, most people in my experience go back to the ad. The ad's not right, it's putting in the wrong people. And in my, on the grounds experiences, that's rarely true if leads are coming in. And if you've got a good ad running that's talking to your ideal client, it's talking about the offer that directly speaks about ABC, which is a problem for your ideal client, and they're kind of coming in. Now, I want to also say that if you are calling leads and they're saying things to you like, I didn't put my details in, oh, that was a mistake, all those sorts of things, they're not bad leads. You're triggering sales resistance in the first few words that you speak with a lead, and that's why they're saying that. It's a common thing that we hear. And if you think about it, we don't get those types of objections by calling leads because we know how to call leads through our setters, and because they're trained in tonality, in their speech cadence, and in what to say that actually pulls people in rather than instantly sound like a salesperson that repels them. So there's a couple of the caveats I want to go over. So if you are getting those things like, oh, the leads answer, but they fob us off within the first few seconds, like, oh, I don't need that service, or oh, that was a mistake, or I didn't mean to do that, it was an accident. People don't click on ads by accident and go through a sequence of clicking on the ad, clicking on the learn more button, submitting their details, all by some kind of random accident. If you really think about it, it's not what's happening. So let's just dive in and go, let's find out and go back to the true meaning of marketing and sales, which is at a high level, awareness, getting the attention of your ideal client, engagement, and conversion. And what we need to figure out is, when I speak to any business owner, I want to see in that pipeline, in that customer journey to the promised land of them becoming a client, where is the constraint? Because the constraint might not be the ad, it might not be the engagement, it might not be the booked appointments, it might also be that they're showing up, it may be that they're presenting, and at the end, they're just not converting. So let's have a look and see what's going on. What is the problem? We need to look at where is the constraint, and we need to leave our assumptions behind that we're simply thinking it's the ad. It's a knee-jerk reaction that is usually comes from people that are not experienced in the paid media open market world. And what I share with you is I've had the very grateful to be able to get coached by a CEO that runs a $50 million a year consulting company where they're pulling in 10,000 leads a month, they're converting high, to see that really, and what I'm trying to kind of impress upon you here is that it doesn't matter whether you're working at a level of $50 million a year company, or just doing multiple seven figures a year, or just doing 100,000 a year. The numbers and the mechanism, the metrics don't change. It's just that the big boys and the big girls are playing at a larger, more higher leveraged level. So that's all that is. So the first thing, we're just going to ask some questions. Are leads coming in? Because if leads are not coming in, then clearly there's a problem with the front end, with the ad. They're just not coming in, right? If they're coming in, great. Then the next question is, are leads getting booked in? If they're not getting booked in, but you've got leads coming in, then you've got a problem with the setter calling and it's just not working. I've had a recent client where we looked at the CRM, and over a 6-week period or something, there was only several dozens of dials being made over that period of time. It was never going to work. So if they are getting booked in, Are they showing up? If they're not showing up, are you confirming those appointments? Is the setter confirming? Is the setter calling them on the day or the day before and reminding them, getting them excited? Because, are you booking them too far in advance? If you're booking somebody a week or 2 weeks in advance, they're probably not going to show up. You want to keep it to a constrained window of maybe 3 days. Are the reminder sequences right? Are they getting reminders to show up? Are they getting something valuable? All those sort of things you need to look at. Where is the problem in your world? Don't just automatically fixate on leads, because that can be a problem. But we'll come back to that, because leads could also be a problem. Are the leads converting when you have them on a call? So if you've got them on a call and you're kind of chatting with them, or if they're just staying surface level with you, then you already know you've got a sales process problem. They're not opening up. You're not skilled in asking advanced questions. You're not using the right tonality. You're not using the right framework, and they're just shutting down on you. And if you get to the point where at the end and you present to them about your service and they're saying, I want to think about it, or I'll come back next week and pay you, or something, you've got a sales problem. It's got nothing to do with the marketing. Marketing's done its job. Leads are booked in, they're ready to talk to you, and you've identified there could potentially be a fit for your business, but they're not moving forward with you. It's a bad date, essentially. You're the guy or girl that's going on dates and nobody ever wants to come back for the second date. Maybe the problem is the person that's doing the dating, which might be you. So you just need to put the ego aside, which I know can be hard, and I'm no different, right? But we need to just kind of really look at this and go, where is the problem? Where's the constraint? And let's fix that. Let's not fix the wrong thing. So, as I said, you really want to be mindful not to try and fix the wrong thing. And so ego can be a huge part in that. Or if you're a business owner, have got staff, they may even be protecting their position and go, it's, if it's a setter, it's not, it's not me. It's somebody else. It's the leads. But then also I want to look at the CRM. I want to know how many dials are they doing. Our setters on my team, they do about 400 dials a day, right? They're using a dialer, 14 seconds a dial, so it doesn't engage the voicemail, and they can just cycle through that really quickly, right? And that gives them X amount of conversations a day. So again, don't fix the ad if you are getting appointments and you're presenting, but they don't enroll. Means you've got a sales problem. Or if you're getting leads but no one books in, you've got a setter problem, right? So you've got to make sure that you're monitoring. You need to have optics. And by optics, I mean you need to make sure that your setter is making calls through your CRM so you can check the data. Don't rely on what people tell you. Humans lie. And sometimes they even do it subconsciously, right? I'll give you an example. You might have someone that goes, look, I've called all the leads. I've done, they're all bad. I've called, and they might have done 50 calls. And in their mind, that's a lot of calls they've made. But in the real commercial world of setting 50 dials, you can do that probably in an hour or two easily, and it's done. So if they have been calling for a few weeks and have done 50 dials, they're either just avoiding making the dials because they're in the wrong position. They shouldn't be in that position. So you need to have optics. You need to be able to go to your call reports on your dashboard in your CRM and go, how many dials have they made today, yesterday, this week? Because that will give you a different picture. So they should be doing several hundred dials every day in an 8-hour shift. If it's an 8-hour shift, 400 dials is what we look at in my company. So you need to make sure you fix the right issue. And so there, like I've just said, you need to track everything. You need to use trackers from leads coming in. What's the engagement like? What's the open rate for your emails? Is it at least 20% or more? So that you are knowing there's getting engagement happening. Are the setters doing all the dials? If they're being booked in, is at least 50 or 60%? 60% ideally is where I like to be, or more, that are showing up. If they're not showing up, you've got a problem between booked to them showing up. And that can be a couple of things. Information you're sending. Are you sending too much? Are you trying to pepper them with social proof and everything else? Don't do that. Just send them one piece of information. Might be a video about your business, how you might be able to help them, to warm them up get them excited for the meeting, right? Make sure a setter calls them. It's so important that the meeting's confirmed either through a text or through something else, and if possible, keep your window tight of around 3 days, if possible, if you can, that that from the moment the setter spoke to them, that they're booked in, preferably the next day or the day after. So the numbers, let's say leads are coming in. You want a minimum of 200 leads in your system to have statistical significance. Because otherwise you might be suffering from a false positive or false negative, meaning if you just got 50 leads and you've got 5 clients, I would say that's a false positive. It sounds exciting, but it might not be the true picture. On the same token, if you've got 50 or 100 leads and you don't have clients yet, it might be a false negative because you just don't have enough data. So you want to make sure you track everything. We've talked about dials already. We talked about that too. On any given day, I said on my team we'll do 400 dials in a shift. So I've got 2 setters plus, and we try and do about 1,000 dials a day on my team. But we're running ads at a high level. We've got a lot of leads coming in, and we've got a substantial database that they can call as well. So when we review clients' CRM and say they have dialed 82 times over 3 weeks, that's not going to work. So in their mind, it's about adjusting expectations. If they're going, well, in the last 3 weeks I've called 82 times, leads in general, that's probably not going to do it. The protocol should be, you do double dials in the morning and double dials in the afternoon. And a double dial counts as 1 dial, right? So double dials, and then on top of that, you want to call people about 5 times in 3 days to get a hold of them, right? Because when people say, I don't want to call someone 5 times or 6 times. I remember speaking to a client, or several clients, by the way. They go, look, I've got a 3-strike rule. I call them, I leave a message. If they don't answer after 3 times, they're in the bin. And I think to myself, if I did that, I wouldn't have a relationship with my mother. Because my mum, love her dearly. She's watching Netflix. She's doing her own thing. I'll call her. She doesn't answer. Send her a text. She doesn't reply. I mean, if I use a 3-strike rule with my mother who I've got a relationship with, people just have to recognize there are 2 worlds. There's your world and their world. And just because you're calling a lead, they could be at the supermarket shopping. They could be with their friend having a coffee and you're dialing. They're not picking up. So you've done that and then they're like, oh gosh, you've given up on that lead. Quick story. My current financial planner that I use, he's amazing. I think he chased me for 3 or 4 months. He was just very good at that. He just kept calling me, not every day, but he just made sure he followed up with me. And I knew in the back of my mind, I need to sort out my retirement planning, superannuation fund, all that kind of jazz. But eventually got a hold of me. And I remember this guilt came up in me. I don't say guilt, but almost like, I have to speak with him. I need to get this sorted. I knew I did, but something always came in the way. Eventually we connected and I went, thank you so much for just being persistent. I know I need to, let's set something up next week. So most people, give up on a stranger, but would put more work into a family member in tracking them down, or their brother or their sister, in calling them several times. And they're more forgiving and they've got a relationship. When it comes to a stranger, they give up after 3 or 4 or 5 attempts. And that just doesn't make sense to me. And it shouldn't make sense to you either. So you want to make sure if you're using a follow-up system and you've got a setter, you want to convert somewhere around 15 to 20% or more, depending on the industry, of leads into appointments, okay? You must have a trained setter. If you're working with us, we really put into the agreement that you must hire a setter our way, and they must be trained by us so we can assess them, we can do role playing with them to make sure that they know what they're doing. And number 2, they're also calling the right way, saying the right words with the right tonality to pull somebody in and not repel them, right? And how to overcome some light concerns, objections, and making sure that potential lead or inquiry gets the information and does book in. So you need to make sure that they're managed daily. You've got recordings, so you need some optics on what's going on. You can't rely on a setter telling you all these leads are bad or good if you can't listen to the call. Because you might get a salesperson or a setter telling you one thing, but if you listen to the call or watch the recording back, you might be horrified as to what's going on. And what they're saying doesn't match what's actually happening. And they might not even realize. So you need to make sure these people are managed for the good for them as well. They might not even realize they're doing something wrong because nobody's ever told them otherwise or actually trained them professionally. So, if you've got 200 leads coming in, let's say you got 35 appointments out of that and 20 of them showed up and you enrolled 5 out of those, And let's say each client's worth to you 5,000, that's 25,000 in profit. Let's say the leads cost you $20 a lead, that's 4,000 in ad spend. You've got a return on ad spend of 6.25 to 1. That means for every dollar you've spent, you get $6 back. So that means your cost per acquisition in that scenario there, my trusted calculator, is $800 to get one client to make $5,000 back. That means your COGS, your cost of goods sold, is running at 16%. And really, we know with a service-based business, your costs could be up to 40% and you still be running at a very high profit margin. So you've got room to move here. So hope that kind of makes sense. So if your pipeline is broken, like you've got bad setting, bad show-up rates, or reminder sequence that's not confirming appointments, bad or non-existing sales process, like everything falls apart. It only takes one part in your pipeline to have a bad situation and everything tanks. And if you don't know where the constraint is, it's probably because you're not tracking. So stop blaming the leads. You need at least 200 leads to come in, have some statistical significance. If the numbers are too low, like I've mentioned earlier, you might get a false positive or negative, right? So the solution is you've got to track everything. You have to track to ensure to know where the problem is, right? Because then you find the constraint and then fix the constraint. So I hope this video really helps. If you're a client of ours, of course, come to us in one of our one-on-ones so we can have a look at everything and see what needs to be fixed so we can address that and help out. If you're not a client, then start looking at those. Start tracking, first of all. Are leads coming in? Is the engagement working? People opening your emails? Is the setter working? Is your sales process working? Record the sales calls, record the Zoom calls. Track everything. Take this serious and you have a multi-million-dollar business. But if you don't, you're just winging it, it all falls apart. If you'd like to learn more and you're not a client, book in for a strategy session. Let's do an audit and see where the constraint may be. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you inside the next one.